Waiters, what Valentine Day disasters have you witnessed? I blew my car's tire and my friend came in to bail me out. We're both straight dudes and forgot it was Valentine's. Decided to have dinner and both were coming from important meeting so had suits on. We didn't catch on until the end on how the entire wait staff thought we were just the cutest gay couple. I 100% went to lunch with my best friend on V-Day years ago because we were both single and the staff thought we were dating. This is hilarious. A male co-worker and me were the first for a fancy office dinner. We got asked if we needed a table for two. Needless to say, that became a running joke for a long time. It sounds like you were trying to convince the waitstaff that you guys aren't gay by using your own username. I served at a Japanese hibachi restaurant and once had a couple come and the dude dumped her after the meal. She then gets up and throws up a trail probably a good 20 feet as she runs to the bathroom. The dude got up and left the girl and I was left to clean the mess. Why the hell did she throw up so much? Some people puke when they are really stressed or distraught, I guess. It's not uncommon for people to vomit from sudden stress. It likely had nothing to do with what she ate or how much. These two were on a date and the guy went to go use the bathroom. The girl just up and leaves after he went to the restroom. When the guy came back, he sat around for a while until asking his waitress where she went. She replied with saying that she left. The guy then asked the waitress if she would go on a date with him. The waitress said no. 0 for 2 in one night, damn. You miss every shot you don't take. Gotta admire the desperation. Asking is free of charge. They came in at lunch the day after, so it was pretty empty, but it was still for a Valentine's Day date. They were both pretty nice at the beginning. The guy asked for a picture and whatnot. As the meal went on, the dude got progressively drunker, and by the time I brought the check out, the woman was gone. When the dude gave me his card, he said, "I'll give you a bit of advice. If you're taking a girl out to break up with her, do it at a McDonald's and not an expensive restaurant. I don't understand why some people think it's a thing to break up at a restaurant. Dump me in private, please. If we have plans to go out, dump me beforehand. It's in the hope the other person won't make a scene. But it could backfire because if they do make a scene, it's in a public place and you look like a dick." He proposed, she said no. He cried and tried to change her mind for 20 minutes while she sat there stony-faced. She finally got up and walked out. He paid and left in tears. Why are there so many people proposing to people they've not discussed marriage with before? It blows my mind. Exactly, the answer to a proposal should never be a surprise. She said yes, I knew she'd say yes, I know she wanted to marry the fuck out of me because we talked about this. It should never be like, well, give it a go because I feel like we should, and maybe she thinks so as well. Okay, so I'm not supposed to propose to every date I go out with? I worked at a pretty high-end Mediterranean bistro. My second Valentine's there, it was probably the busiest night I've ever worked as a server. We had reservations that booked basically the entire restaurant including the bar and patio from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. No walk-ins were to be seated unless a reservation was cancelled or someone with a reservation didn't show up. Most of the customers were pretty understanding and either waited or simply left. One dude, however, kept pushing and pushing, asking every 10 minutes how much longer until he is seated, constantly saying how he is a regular customer and how his date is going to be there at 7. He got there at 6. We insisted that once a table was available and all the customers before him were seated, he would get a table, but because the amount of reservations, we couldn't guarantee he would even get a table at all. At about 6:50 the guy loses it, fast walks up to the hostess stand where the reservation book is, grabs the reservation book, and practically runs out the front door. Now everything is going to complete shit because the only copy of the reservations for the night that is barely half over is gone. Two of the owners ran outside to follow the guy and try and get the book back, but by the time they got out he had already left the parking lot. Even better is 2 hours later, chaos is still running rampant, and the dude shows back up, saying he has a reservation for 2. 3 of the 5 of the owners, all brothers, escorted the dude and his date out to the parking lot and banned him from the restaurant permanently. They even took a picture of him and posted it in the window saying, "Do not serve this man." TLDR. Salty dude without reservation steals reservation book and then tries to come back later. Edit. If anyone wants to use this for a sitcom, feel free. Just let me reprise my role as the waiter and we can call it even. All I can picture is this dude thinking that he can get his way by essentially reenacting the restaurant version of that Joker urban legend with the university student who finishes his exam late and when the proctor won't accept it, the student asks, "Do you know who I am?" Then, when told no, he grabs the stack of exam booklets and flings them into the air and runs out. Fuck, my high school physics teacher told us this story from his college days, except the kid just sticks his own paper deep within the 200 paper stack and sprints out. Now I know he was just full of shit. Pretty decent physics teacher though, for an electrical engineer at least. Not a waiter, but in my strip club bouncer days we had one of our regulars get suited up and bring flowers in one V-Day to try and woo one of the dancers. It did not work. Pro tip. If every time y'all hang out it involves you giving her money, she is not into you. I cannot imagine how depressing a strip club on Valentine's Day is. It's fucking great for the strippers. Valentine's Day is like Black Friday for strippers and hookers. Update. Had a bunch of longer than usual bookings with clingier than usual clients. Checks out. Not wait staff, but I used to work front desk at a hotel. One Valentine's Day I was working the night shift and this woman comes down with a cut above her eye, looking like she just went a few rounds in the ring with a boxer. Woman starts sobbing and asks us to call the coos, which we do immediately. Turns out this girl's boyfriend just beat the shit out of her during a fight, and from what I could tell this probably wasn't the first time. So after the cops show up and haul the dude off, my manager offers her a different room on comp as we need to leave the guy's stuff where it is for him to pick up the next day. She accepts and I go up with the woman to help her collect her stuff and move to the new room. There were a bunch of bottles of alcohol in the room and she donated them to the front desk staff. I got a bottle of Hypnotic and some vodka. Manager got a bottle of Patron. Cherry on top of everything, the dude's wife called later that night saying someone had stolen his card as he was out of town on a business trip. Never want to defend an abuser, I told her where she could find her husband. Fun times. Thanks for telling the wife. My mother has been cheated on and the hotel staff wasn't able to tell her anything. I understand why they're not able to, but thank you for doing that for a stranger. Few years ago, we had a woman come to us to see if her husband was cheating. We didn't tell her anything at first, but then she gave us her credit card and lo and behold, months worth of room rentals on her card. She said she had a feeling about her husband and her friend. Had us print out all the receipts to take to a divorce lawyer. By the time we were done, she had quite a stack. She stayed calm the whole time, no idea how, I would have lost it. She already knew. She was just gathering evidence, and rightfully so. Usually, the people that get fucked the most in a divorce is because their spouse did exactly what she did. I hope she reamed his ass in court. Guy cheated on her and used her money to do it? Stupid and savage. I had a Section 1V day that had a marriage proposal, a 40th anniversary, and a breakup all at the same time. The breakup was the worst. The guy brought his high-class date a gift, a mini ceramic bear holding balloons. He presented it when I was at the table and she looked at it like it was a hot turd. I just knew this was not going to end well. She left at the end of the meal and must have said something because he stayed at the table for another 40 minutes, head down and crying. I felt bad. He saw the celebrations going on at the other tables. Aw, poor dude. That sounds like a cute gift. I'd hate it. Just another thing to dust and I'm not really into mass-produced tat unless it's food. I mean, yeah, but I'd be polite about it. Not a waiter, but I was a pastry chef at this big resort in Cape Cod. We got a special order from this guy who was coming in for his anniversary, Valentine's Day. He wanted his dessert to have, "Will you marry me?" written on it so he could pop the question when it came out. He called ahead to the front and back kitchen, even came in himself that morning to make sure it was good to go. The whole crew was behind him. We had cooks all night coming in the ask if it had happened yet. I wrote the inscription on the plate and dressed it to the nines with gold leaf and expensive chocolate. I'm taking a picture of the plate just before it's set to go out and notice our head waiter come in with a weird look on his face. He says plainly, they don't need it. She broke up with him before the entrees hit the table. Ruthless. She could probably tell from his energy what he was planning and wanted to shut it down ASAP cause she knew she didn't want to marry him. The guy did a backflip and asked a girl to be his Valentine. She declined. I walked up to him and asked if he was fine. He said it took him a week to perfect. I feel for this guy, man, hope he found someone. May he find a girl who does a front flip for him. I can all let do flips on trampolines and every song time I have tried a backflip on a trampoline I landed so that I kneed myself in the face and ended up with a bloody nose every single time. I was eating in a fine dining establishment, Chili's, several years ago. In the next booth was a really young guy who had a big bunch of roses on the seat next to him. He kept looking at his watch, looking at the roses, and popping open a ring box for a peek at the ring. He did this for a half hour or so, then began calling and texting someone, presumably his girlfriend, over and over. As we were waiting for our check, he handed my wife the roses, mumbled something, and walked out. Poor guy. Edit. I don't consider Chili's a fine dining experience. My wife and I had done some shopping and stopped off for a burger and beer afterwards. Walking back to my dorm room once a guy was carrying roses, I think this was around Valentine's Day? I don't remember, and he handed one to me. Made my day because it had been a crappy long day, but I wonder what kind of day he had to be having to be handing out roses to strangers. The guy proposed to his girlfriend and she said no. The guy threw his arms up and ran out of the building. Later, while waiting for someone to pick her up, she told us it was completely out of the blue because they'd only been dating for a few months. Another V-Day, a guy raised a huge fuss over the fact that we wouldn't serve liquor to his underage girlfriend. I'm certain you mean he threw up his hands momentarily in exasperation, but I can't help picturing him running out of the restaurant arms straight up Kermit the Frog style. I'd like to believe the Kermit the Frog won. I used to be a waiter in a 5-star restaurant. It was my first week. One guy was about to propose. It was obvious by how much he was sweating he was drenched. I tried to make them both relax. They went on to finish up their meal. As soon as the cake arrived he then went on one knee. She stood up suddenly. He vomited right on her high heels. After the shock of what just happened she still ended up saying yes. Now that's love. Well, everyone on these threads says don't propose unless you're certain of the answer. At least he got that part right. And he was still so nervous about it that he puked. But he needs to talk to a professional about his anxiety. Had a couple sign divorce papers and cry a bunch. If it's amicable that's when you get shit-faced together. My ex and I fist bumped when the judge declared the marriage dissolved and then took a photo together with the papers outside of the courthouse. Thumbs up and all. Aw, I love that. Story time? Why divorce? 16 years in hospitality gives you some good stories. The most awkward. My first job as a waitress, a guy wanted to propose to his girlfriend. He came in 2 months before to book and had everything figured out. He planned to pop the question during dessert. We had champagne, balloons and sparklers prepped for the big moment. The time comes, he drops to one knee, gives a speech about his love for her. He asks, she says no, puts the ring in her bag, finishes her dessert and leaves. Quite possibly the most awkward thing I have had to witness, alongside around 200 other people. The manager gave him everything for free. He felt that bad for him. Cringed inside every time I saw him after that. The most fucked up. I was working as a duty manager, and one of the tills kept dropping off the network. As I was trying to fix it, I could clearly hear the conversation of the table by the waiter's station. It started out sweet enough with her excitedly telling him she was pregnant. He went quiet and didn't say anything for a bit, and then asked her what the plan was. She said she was keeping the baby. He said he didn't want kids and had told her this. She got upset and said she thought he'd be happy and change his mind when he found out. By this point I've fixed a till, but am unable to step away from this car crash. Turns out she stopped taking the pill without telling him, thinking she could turn him around. He said he knew she could be a little nuts sometimes, but this was next level. He told her it was over, and she could send someone to collect her things, as he wanted nothing more to do with her. He called me over to pay the bill and just left. The guy never even shouted, he just calmly went fuck this and noped out of there. I couldn't even look her in the eye, just left her to leave in her own time. The funniest. Managing hotel room service where there was a Valentine's package that included getting each course of the special menu delivered to your room. More than a few couples thought it was a good idea to call for the next course and then start having sex. Having to help with deliveries as reception fucked up the bookings. I had the privilege of people answering the door naked, seeing sex toys strewn around, and one where the other members of the threesome were carrying on in the background. After complaints of similar instances from my team, I had to take action. I ended up having to call the offending guests and tell them if they could not respect my team by answering the door in at least a closed dressing gown, they could come down and collect the rest of their meal from the restaurant. Bonus from the same night. Had to call an ambulance for a woman with a dislocated shoulder. The guy admitted that they were trying to recreate a bucket-type scene in the shower using conditioner as the coom. He slipped in the conditioner and fell on her. I fucking don't get how people still think trapping someone with a baby is a good idea. Some people are perfectly happy without kids. Like WTF. Edit. Wow, this comment blew up. I didn't mean it as an attack on women in either, I just meant as woman. I could never see the benefit of this. You are tricking your partner and breaking their trust. All in all a bad idea. I once had a friend advise me this was a good idea. Guys don't know they want kids until they have them, he says, so just get pregnant and he will marry you. I informed him that sounded like a great way to become a single mother. And needless to say have never taken this advice. Is it wrong that I was surprised that this friend is a guy? I'm downright flabbergasted. A 16-year-old boy proposed to a 15-year-old girl with a cheap ring in the whipped cream of her dessert. She said yes. So romance isn't quite dead yet. Don't you know what happens when kids that young get married? It's all romance until the mutual suicide. At least their families might stop their bloody feud. Juliet was 13. Like Milhouse from the Simpsons set, it started out like Romeo and Juliet, but then it ended up bad. Old man proposed to old woman. He tried to get off the chair to kneel, tripped and fell, and I assume broke something since he couldn't get back up, and we had to call an ambulance. My manager had to drive her teeth to the hospital separately because she had taken them out to eat her soup, Lord knows why, and left them on the table in the confusion. Edited to add. I don't know if she said yes, my manager didn't get to see them at the hospital, only pass on her teeth to the nurse. Thank you kindly for the gold and silver though. Because she had taken them out to eat her soup, Lord knows why. Some of the adhesive products used to keep denture in the mouth really can't take much heat. Assuming the soup was hot, the adhesive would just turn into goo and drip in her mouth, in addition to not holding the dentures in. I was working as a waitress in a sushi restaurant, and Valentine's Day was an all-hands-on-deck shift. This guy I had just started seeing wanted to go out, but I told him that working in food service, you never get Valentine's Day off, and we just have to celebrate the day after or the weekend after. Nope. He got so upset that he went and asked a different girl out, came to the restaurant I worked at on V-Day and sat in my section. He then proceeded to spend the entire evening making a fool out of himself and making his date uncomfortable as he tried to make me jealous. Needless to say, we didn't go out again. Ever. If he had surprised you at work and brought a couple friends that didn't have dates for dinner so that he could still see you on Valentine's Day, he'd have earned 1,000,000 points. But nope. Not only did he get mad over something stupid, he blew it with 2 women at once. Honestly, I'm kinda fucking impressed. That's an obviously insane level of confidence. Edit. Gotta love being exhausted and thinking you typed out words that were in your head. Not my table, but back in my Olive Garden days, we had a man who looked to be in his mid-20s tap his empty wine glass with a fork to call for attention of the surrounding strangers, then get down on one knee with silver band in hand and ask his girlfriend date to accept this promise ring. She looked horrified start to finish. Did she accept the promise ring? Oh hell no. They went outside to talk and she came back in to settle the bill without him. One does not simply accept a proposal of any kind while there are endless breadsticks to be eaten. Back when I served food at one of those super touristy seafood restaurants, I worked a Valentine's Day double shift. For lunch, this younger couple came in celebrating their 1-year anniversary. I offer my congratulations and proceed to do my usual spiel before taking orders. The girl is looking more and more dismayed the longer I talk. Finally I get to the end and ask if there are any allergies. She looks directly at her boyfriend and states, yes, I'm allergic to fish and shellfish. Then looks over at me very sad. I made sure every aspect of her meal was fine for her. But it was that look of we've been dating a year and he still takes me to a restaurant that could kill me that really did it for me. That reminds me when my parents got me a huge strawberry-filled cake with strawberries on it for my 25th birthday. I'm deathly allergic to strawberries. So, did they have a life insurance policy on you or something? I set my hair on fire and spilled a full Stella on a lady. I work in a colossal fine dining steakhouse. Luckily for me, the lady I spilled the Stella on was super understanding, and her husband said from across the table, well, now she has to take her pants off. So that could have gone worse for me. Why did you set your hair on fire before spilling on the lady? Just to feel alive? Candles are my enemy. I have belly button long hair. You might want to consider shaving it if you have so much belly button hair that it's a fire hazard. 2 failed marriage proposals on the same Valentine's Day. The first one simply said no, I can't do this, and walked out. The second one stared like a deer frozen in the headlights for an excruciating 30 seconds before muttering, let's talk about this later. They stayed for the rest of their 6-course B-Day special dinner, eating and making painful small talk. If you aren't 100% certain the person will say yes, then your relationship is nowhere near a point where getting engaged is an option. And definitely not ready for a proposal in a public setting. Happened to my poor co-worker. A guy and his date came in for Valentine's Day. They had a great time, ate a lot of food, drank a lot of wine, and got along really well with my co-worker who was their server. About 2 months later they come back in and request my co-worker again, who happily says yes to serving them. He goes up and greets them, the guy introduces his wife to him, and my co-worker mentions something about how much he enjoyed serving them on Valentine's Day. They go quiet. Wife gets up and leaves, guy just lowers his head. Turns out he had brought his mistress in on Valentine's Day, but my co-worker didn't realize he was with a different woman this time around, so didn't think anything of it. We never saw the guy again. Guy was a POS for cheating obviously, but also what an idiot to request a server he had while with the other woman. Dude took a test drive with the mistress and decided the server was good enough for the wife.
Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Tell me what you dislike or love about this video, so please comment below and hit the bell icon so you're notified anytime a new video is released. This is a WeCrow Media production.